What's going on, everybody? Jordan here. Today we're going to be talking about some Habs draft analysis. We'll be going through a little bit of a mock draft here for the first round. And just kind of hash out what the Habs management might be doing this year at the draft, before the draft, what they might be looking at, and just some of the most recent news that we've heard about what their interests are. So first off, let's go over when the Montreal Canadiens are picking. So if we look at the first round, we know very well they have picks number 16 and 17. Really good back-to-back picks. And in my opinion, a spot in the first round where you could really get kind of like a diamond in the rough as far as the rough of the first round. We know we've gotten players like Cole Caulfield and Caden Gooley around those ranges. So really excited to see what ends up happening with those two picks. Other than the 16-17th pick, they also have 41, 49, 79, 81, 82. So 81, 82 is another back-to-back, very interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if they move one of those. They usually end up doing some kind of move around those picks where they move pick like 81 and 108 that they also have for a slightly better pick, or they move down with those picks, whatever is the best move for them. But yeah, 81, 82, 108, 113, 145, 177, and pick 209 to finish it off. That's what they have right now. Again, wouldn't be surprised to see some of these draft picks move around because of just how many assets they do have this year already in the pipeline, on the draft floor, and even leading into next year, they also have a bunch of assets. So at the stage that they are now in their development, I would imagine that the Montreal Canadiens are looking to trade off some of these assets for slightly more established pieces that will help them take the next step forward and become a consistent playoff team. So in my opinion, I do think that we are, look, last year was, I will definitely not call it a fluke. They earned being in the playoffs, but they almost didn't make the playoffs. They were right on the cutoff. So they were also the youngest team to ever make the playoffs, I'm pretty sure, and no one expected that. So I think that was kind of a news flash to Habs management that they have been, what they've been working towards is finally coming to light, and we can finally see our young guys take this next step forward. So many interesting prospects in our pipeline right now that will help us moving forward, and I really think that we are ready to become a much more consistent playoff team. So I think we're about a year away from being that, depending on the moves, of course, that Habs management makes, but I think that they're aware of where we are, and I think the moves we're going to see them make will reflect that thought process of being just, I believe, one year away from that. So very interested to see what happens here. We know that they have been aggressive on the Dobson front, and there were reports that they were quite interested in Jordan Kyrou at some point last year. And it's very interesting because if you look at the two teams that seem to be the most interested in Dobson, it is in fact the Habs and the Blues. And so it'll be interesting kind of to see how that shakes out, if the Blues end up with Dobson, if Habs end up with Dobson, what they're going to give up, and what happens with Kyrou in that process, right? Because I'm sure the New York Islanders wouldn't be mad at a player like Kyrou in a potential Dobson trade. So we'll see what happens, but it is just interesting to see those teams that are in the fight for Dobson. We also know that the Habs, they want a 2C. It is very clear that is a big lack right now in our organization, is an established or just extremely promising 2C. The closest we have to that really is Michael Hage. He's not ready at the moment. I would like to see him develop more at the NCAA level. He had a great year last year, as his first year in that league. So I'm really excited to see what his sophomore year is going to look like. I have high hopes for Michael Hage. I think he's going to be a really good player for this organization, and I really hope that we keep him and we don't sacrifice him for a move that would help us with our 2C right now. I know that sounds a bit weird because 2C is what we need, but I would rather keep a player like Michael Hage, who obviously with his backstory and him really wanting to be a Montreal Canadiens, his father being such a big fan of the organization, I just think that was a match made in heaven for Michael Hage. The fact also that Demidov was drafted during that same draft, it's nice to see that those two already have some kind of rapport, and I really want to see them develop together and have that duo together for the next decade plus. That'd be really interesting to see. So yeah, hoping we don't have to sacrifice him for a move, but we do need help right now. It would be a disservice to Ivan Demidov to just kind of let him try to develop in his first full year in the NHL with no real 2C beside him, right? Like, I know that we're kind of all skimming over Kirby Dach here, but there's no hiding it that Kirby Dach is very injury prone at the moment. His future is kind of uncertain. I would even say that this is close to being a make or break year for Kirby Dach as far as what the organization decides to do with him. So I'm really, really hoping that he comes out the gates swinging this year. I hope that he took a step forward, but it'll be difficult with the kind of injuries that he's suffered to have that step that you need to be an effective 2C in the NHL. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, ideally, Kirby Dach ends up being the player that we traded for him to be. But yeah, it seems like right now that isn't what's shaping up to become reality. So we have to think of contingency plans. We have to see if there's other 2Cs out there, and I think they've been aggressively doing that from what I've heard and seen. Now, there's two ways that they can go about this, in my opinion, and it gets complicated because they don't just need a 2C, right? They've expressed that they need also help on the right D side of things, a top right D. Enter Noah Dobson into that conversation. So they've got two really big voids to fill right now, that 2C and the RD spot. What they decide to do to fill those two voids is really, it could be really interesting. So it could go one of both ways, right? It could be that they try to trade their top end assets, such as their first round pick this year, they're both their first round picks this year. It could be a prospect like Logan Mailloux. We've heard his name a lot. We could even look at combining a first round pick and our second round pick. I doubt that they'll be looking to trade their first round pick from next year, but who knows really what they might do. Just saying that there is that possibility that they use those first-round picks and those top-end assets. Even Kappen and Owen Beck, those are two names that I could see being on the move, and I could see other teams being interested in. But it really depends. Do they use those assets to trade for a 2C? Do they use them to trade for a right D? And then I really think that depending on what they decide, that will dictate what they do on the draft floor, who they're going to be targeting. Because at pick 16, 17, let's say they still have those two picks, they could either go for a center, they could go for, I know that there's a right D available around that range. So yeah, it's really, really tough to see what they're gonna do here. We've also heard them say that they're interested, but potentially in moving up, even up until the top 10. So they said that they had a few guys. Jeff Gorton said this yesterday. They had a few guys in their sights in that top 10 range. Now, if I just pull this up over here, the draft rankings, who could they be eyeing in that top 10 range? Well, there's a few players. Most of them are centers, and then you've got this interesting right D in Radim Mrtka. Hope I'm saying that right. But he's really been making waves lately. He is a right shot D. He could be really interesting for the Habs. It wouldn't really be a splash pick, but it would be an important pick, I would say. I've actually haven't seen that much footage about this kid, so if they do end up grabbing him, I'd be really excited to see what he looks like. But that could be someone that they're eyeing for sure. We've also got players like Victor Eklund, which could be extremely interesting. I doubt that he makes it that far. I actually think that someone's going to reach for this guy, but Brady Martin is another name that we've heard. Kind of a more of a high octane power forward type player, which we all know is extremely sought after in today's NHL. And then it depends, like, how far does a player like James Hagens drop? Does he drop? What about Roger McQueen, right? Like, he's a 6'5" forward. He's had some injury problems, which could hurt his draft position here. But just to name a few, those are some players that they could be eyeing. Jackson Smith, that's another name that has been making waves lately. So in that top 10 range, if they decide to trade up into that range using their likely 16, 17, or 16 in their second round pick to move into that range, I don't know if I would really want them to trade 16 and 17 to move up to that range. I think that they could probably find equally good players in 16, 17 than in the top 10, unless we're talking about someone that they see as a complete home run. In my opinion, if you ask me, I would be very happy if they were to move into that top 10 range. I would actually love to see them go get a player like either Victor Eklund or someone like Brady Martin if he ends up dropping. It would, again, there's James Hagens, right? We don't know how far he's going to drop. We don't know if he is going to drop. There is also a lot of rankings that had Porter Martone dropping. That could be another player that they are looking at closely to see how far he may drop. He's a right winger. He's a big boy. I remember last year at some point he was just consistently in that top three talk. So very interesting to see what happens there. I think Caleb Desnoyers is going to be a top 5 pick. He's a Quebec-born player. I'm not a fan of drafting people just based off where they're from. I know that the market in Montreal, a percentage of the people, let's just say they are, they really want us to draft a Quebec-born player if there is one available. I'm completely against that. This is nothing against Quebec-born players or against the French language. I want to be clear on that. Nothing against that. It is simply the fact that this is the NHL. This is a business. We are out here to draft the best players available, the best players that would fit our team chemistry, that would fit what we need. This is not a question of drafting players based off where they're born or the language they speak. That's just ridiculous. I'm not going to get into that. I'd be here all day. But anyways, that's what we're looking at right now. If they decide to keep 16, 17, players that I really like in that range, Carter Bear, obviously, if he can drop to us, I'd be ecstatic to pick him at 16 or 17. You've got players like Logan Hensler, Braden Coots, looks like a leader out there, Jack Nesbitt, and then you've got this Cole Reshny kid who's not that big, but boy, he's put up some big numbers in the WHL this year, 92 points in 62 games, 66 of those being assists, so obviously more of a playmaker it looks like. Then you've got players like Lyndon Lakovic, who's a big boy. He's been able to produce. And then we've got a player like Justin Carbonneau, right? He's a Quebec-born player. He's a right winger. He's put up pretty good numbers in the QMJHL. So really interesting. There's a bunch of players in that range that we could see getting drafted. We even, there's even a player like Cameron Reed who's been talked about in that range, who's a lefty, but he was really effective in Kitchener. Had like 26 minutes average time on ice for them. He was played in all situations. So Cameron Reed could be a guy that the Habs have also been looking at. So we'll see what happens. The only fear I have with someone like, let's say, a Justin Carbonneau is it just seems like players that have been productive in the QMJHL, those numbers have more of a tough time translating to the next level. That's just what it seems according to the players that we've seen getting drafted out of the queue that had these big numbers in the queue. It's a bit tougher to translate to the next level. I'm not saying that Justin Carbonneau is not going to become a fantastic player. He may very well become a fantastic player, and he seems to have all the tools that make him attractive in the NHL, being this kind of power forward type of player. I would just be a little bit tentative, and I would definitely trust Habs management and their scouting team to have looked at all of the angles here and really seen if his play could translate to the next level. So very excited to see what happens at 16-17. And what do they do? Do they even draft with those picks? They might even trade those picks for someone like Dobson. It's very interesting right now. It's exciting to be a Habs fan. Again, we've been through many years of heartbreak and just kind of not watching really exciting hockey and just cheering almost for them to lose to end up with a good draft pick. It's nice that we can finally turn the tides and be excited to watch our team again and root for them to win. It's a great feeling. Another team that could be interesting here is the Pittsburgh Penguins, right? They have picks 10 and 11. So if we're going to be moving up into that top 10 range, like Jeff Gorton was talking about, that could be a team that we're potentially doing a deal with. A player on Pittsburgh right now, actually, that aside from Sidney Crosby, I know we're all dreaming of a Sidney Crosby to Montreal trade. I don't think it will cost as much as some of these mock trades that I've seen online. I'm personally not a fan of trading away a player like Michael Hage, some first-round picks, this and that, for Sidney Crosby. I'm just not a fan of sacrificing potentially a decade-plus impact player like Michael Hage and first-round picks for 2 years of Sidney Crosby, who's 38 years old now. I mean, I have a tough time coming to terms with that. And I don't think it would take that much. At the end of the day, Sidney Crosby is going to decide where he wants to go. He's pretty much going to be calling the shots. I think that we would be able to get him for less than that. But anyways, no more Sidney Crosby talk. I don't think that's happening. One option that could be realistic if we're looking for more of a stopgap 2C is a player like Evgeny Malkin. We've heard him in talks that he could be potentially on the move. He wouldn't cost as much, obviously, as Sidney Crosby, I don't believe. Both the assets you'd have to give up and money-wise. And I think he'd be a perfect stopgap 2C until we have players like Michael Hage come up and be ready to play in that role. And we know Malkin was one of Ivan Demidov's favorite players growing up, even more than Ovi. So that could be interesting to see those two develop. And that's another avenue that the Habs can take, right? Like I said before, if they want to fill that 2C, there's them trading those draft picks or their assets, but there's also them just going out and acquiring a stopgap type 2C, just a temporary filler for a couple years that won't cost them so much money, won't cost them so much term, it won't cost them so much in assets that they need to trade for that kind of player. So I'm personally more in favor of getting more of a stopgap 2C like that and waiting for someone like Michael Hage to be ready for that spot. I think that would be just fine for our team, and it wouldn't shake things up too much. I don't think we have to shake things up too much. I think we are fully capable of not really doing a whole lot right now and just keeping this team together for this next year and seeing what happens with them. I mean, they made it to the playoffs last year, so why couldn't they do that again? And then I do think, though, that after this year, if we decide to stay more quiet, I think that the 2026-2027 season is going to be that season where we see the Habs really make a splash. We've heard them talk about moving Carey Price's contract somewhere. I think they're going to have a ton of money and a ton of assets to spend. So I do think 26-27 is a season to keep an eye on. That could be a big splash year for the Canadiens. yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing right now for the 2C, the right shot D route. Now, let's just jump into a mock draft quick. I've talked a lot about the Habs and what their plans could be. Let's look at a mock draft here for fun. So we see the Islanders, obviously they're drafting first overall. I think the obvious pick here is going to be Matthew Schaefer, especially if they're getting rid of Noah Dobson. I think Matthew Schaefer is just a no-brainer here. But I also think that if they went Michael Misa, I don't think that would be a big shock either. I mean, if you look at the numbers Misa put up, just insane. Like 134 points in 65 games in the OHL, 62 goals, 72 apples. That's just nutty. So if Misa goes first over Schaefer, I wouldn't be surprised. But 1 and 2, it's going to be Schaefer. It's going to be Misa. So New York Islanders, Schaefer, San Jose, Misa, let's say, or vice versa. Then we go to Chicago. And already at pick number 3, things get interesting. So pick number 3, I could see them go Anton Frundell. I could see them go... you know what? I think it's going to be Frundell. I think if you're drafting best player available, most potential, I think that's Frundell. So yeah, my top 3 would be Schaefer, Misa, and Frundell, in my opinion. Then we go to Utah at 4. So Utah at 4 gets very interesting. I do think that a player like James Higgins would be a great fit in Utah. If we look at their lineup right now, they have a pretty good top 6 at the moment right now, especially with that JJ Peterka move. Like that, boy, I don't know what Buffalo's doing. They need to be investigated, but JJ Peterka. So look at their top 6: Keller, Cooley, Gunter, however you want to say it. Schmaltz, Hayton, Peterka. Like that is a solid top 6. So they're pretty good down the middle, Cooley and Hayton there, but you don't. It doesn't hurt a franchise to get a player like James Higgins, even if he's a center. He's still young. He still has time to grow. So I'm thinking that they go Higgins at this stage. If not, maybe they go Desnoyers. But if it's between Desnoyers or Higgins, I think they're going to go someone like Higgins. Which brings us to Nashville at 5. So if we look at Nashville here, Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault is their line 1 on daily faceoff. Bunting, O'Reilly, Evangelista. Oof. Yeah, so in my opinion, they're going to be going for, they need everything. But in my opinion, they'll be going for the best center here, the best available center. So whether that's going to be Higgins, Desnoyers, or Jake O'Brien, I'm thinking they're probably going to go somebody, whoever's left between Higgins and Desnoyers at 5, I think is who they're going to go for. That brings us to Philadelphia. So Philadelphia is pretty interesting. We know they just acquired Trevor Zegras. So if we look at their lineup right now, Mishkov, Couturier, Konechny, Forster, Cates, Brink, Peltier, Zegras, Tippett. They have a good, they look good on paper. I would say that they need a little bit of everything. Yeah, they pretty much need a little bit of everything. So I think that Briere is going to go for someone like either O'Brien or Martin here. So Jake O'Brien or Brady Martin is who I think they might go for at this spot. Unless maybe Caleb Desnoyers is still available at that spot and Briere really wants a Quebec-born player. I don't know. But I see them drafting more someone like O'Brien or Martin. Then we go to Boston again. Someone like Martin or O'Brien, whoever's left over. I think Boston is looking for everything they can get. Best player available. I think they're going to try to get... I think their target is probably someone like Brady Martin, that type of player. Now we go to Seattle. Seattle has so many good prospects in their pipeline. I feel like someone like, at this stage, either Roger McQueen or Victor Eklund would be just really, really good picks. 8-9 Seattle, Buffalo at this stage. Whoever's left between Eklund and McQueen is probably who's going to be drafted here. And then it gets real interesting at 10 with Anaheim. 10 at Anaheim. Eklund is such an Anaheim player. I don't know why. I just see his name on a Ducks jersey. I don't think he's going to be available anymore at 10, though. I think that they might go for someone like, maybe if Roger McQueen is still there, Radim Murtka. Who knows? I mean, they're pretty deep at their D position. If I'm looking here, they have Lacombe. Yeah, they're not very deep on their right side. They're going to go Murtka. If he's available, I would see them go Murtka here. Radim Murtka. Now we're going to Pittsburgh. 11-12, back-to-back picks. Very interesting. They need everything they can get also. So they're probably going to be looking at evening it out. They want to get a forward and a D if they make those picks. I could see them going someone like Jackson Smith and Carter Bear. I think that's going to be their two picks there. Jackson Smith, Carter Bear. Detroit at 13. Probably someone like Keishon Aitchison or Logan Hensler even. I think they're going to be looking at drafting a D, in my opinion, at that pick. They're pretty stacked up front, even their prospects. And right now, they got Edvinsson, Seider as their top two pairing. Great pairing. Then they got Sherratt, Johansson, Gustafsson, Hole. Yeah, they're probably going to go. I said Hole, but Hall. They're probably going to go a D here. Either Keishon or Keishon Aitchison, Logan Hensler, or Jackson Smith if he's still there. I think they're going to go for a D. Now we go Columbus at 14. Columbus, they also have great forwards. They could very well go for a D here again. Let's look at Columbus. Boone Jenner, Sean Monahan, Marchenko, Chinakov, Adam Fantilli, Kent Johnson. Yeah, good forwards. Then they got Werenski, Severson, Matejchuk, Gabranson, Christensen, Jordan Harris, the ex-Hab. I hope he's doing good. I could see them going forward or D here. They like European players, I think, over there. Unfortunately, I don't think they're really gonna get one here, but yeah, I could see someone like maybe Justin Carbonneau. Maybe Justin Carbonneau goes to Columbus, or Carter Bear, obviously, if he's still available, or any of those Ds that I mentioned before if they're still available. That's that range that we're looking at there. Vancouver, I think they're going to trade this pick, but again, same players in that range. It's tough to say. Then you got 16-17 for Montreal. I've already said before, I hope it's going to be Baron Hensler or someone like, I honestly wouldn't even mind if it was Cole Reshny. Braden Coots looks like a leader, but I think that we should be looking at Carter Bear and Hensler if we're there. Jack Nesbitt, that's another player, right? Like, we don't really talk about much, but he's a big player. He's like 6'4". Had a pretty good year this year, point per game. He performed well in the playoffs. I wouldn't be mad at that either. And then, honestly, after Montreal, 18-32, it's just such a crapshoot. there's almost no point of even doing a mock draft for that range, because it's just a pure guess, and it's who's left. I just realized that I'm crazy, and I completely forgot about Porter Martone. Yeah, Porter Martone is going to be in the top 10. This is such a crazy draft. Like it could go either way. There's going to be players that are dropping. Yeah, so that kind of ruins the whole mock draft that I just did. But Porter Martone, actually, if he makes it to 11-12, Pittsburgh is going to jump on Porter Martone. Although in my head, I do see Buffalo. I don't know why I see Martone on a Buffalo jersey. So sorry about that. Completely jumped over Martone, but I don't see him dropping any further than Buffalo. So yeah, that's what that's what we're looking at right now for today. Exciting day. I can't wait to see what happens. It's always such a treat watching the NHL draft. It's such a treat watching what teams decide to do. I can't wait to see what Montreal does today. I have a feeling they're going to make a big move, whether that's Dobson or trading directly on the draft floor to move up to the top 10 spot. I do think that from what we've heard, even Elliot Friedman said that the Canadiens are probably the most aggressive team right now. So I think they're going to make something happen. I hope it doesn't cost us too much. Assets that I would be okay moving include any of our picks, really, if it's for the right price. Players like Logan Mailloux, Owen Beck, Oliver Kapanen. I don't want to see him go, but I think that people are going to be asking for Arbor Xhekaj. I do not want to see him go. I think what he brings to the team is so important, and just something that we need, honestly, on this team. So I really hope that Arbor Xhekaj doesn't leave, but that's someone that I could see being in talks. Maybe, let's just go look at their lineup right now, just for fun. Jaden Struble might be a player that is involved in talks. Like he kind of reminds me a little bit. I don't think he carries as much value as Romanov did back then, but he reminds me of a Romanov type of player as far as how other teams may see him. So that's kind of who I'd be okay giving up realistically for a move this year. So we'll see what happens. This was, by the way, my first ever attempt at doing a video like this, talking hockey. It's a little bit out of my comfort zone, I must admit. I hope I didn't say too many foolish things, and I hope that you enjoyed watching. Happy draft day, everyone. Have a great day. I hope that whoever team you're a fan of gets exactly who you want. And go Habs go. All right. Merci beaucoup. À la prochaine.